when somebody's chanting Nam Abbas, so is it always the fact that if they chant without any aparat, then immediately zoom, the sun appears?
No. It goes jati pratita, immediate realization. But it is not, that is the Abbas. Remember this morning we were discussing the difference between Vishuddha Sattva, the realization of Krishna made by Vishuddha Sattva, Sattvam Visuddham Vasudeva Shabditam, Tad iyate tatra pumam apavritaha. That is the uncovered experience of Krishna, Vishuddha Sattva, in the stage of Bhav, direct experience. And before that, there's the covered experience. That is only when Chaito Darpana Marjanam, the mirror of the heart, has become clear, and the Abbas of Krishna Roop is reflected there, Bhagavat Bimba Grahitva. The Chitta is in Sattva Gun. And the Vishuddha Sattva Swarup of Krishna is just reflected there, so the Jatiti Pratita, that experience, is the Abbas.
Okay.
Because and then, gradually, Nam, Rup, Gun, Parika, like this, and your Swarup will come, and then serving internally, Manasik Seva, then Bhav will come. When Bhav comes, that's the actual sun. So this first realization of the Abbas of Krishna, Nam, Rup, Gun, etc. And then there's the actual apavrita, uncovered experience in the stage of Bhav, that is Vishuddha Sattva.
So this realization of the reflection,
yes,
this is like in state of ruchi.
In the stage of Nishtha, the Chitta has already become steady. So little realization of Krishna Roop and some Gun, but not Madhurya. When Ruchi comes, we said this one, the definition of Ruchi, Ruchihi, Papa Bij Nashad, Madhurya Anubhavaha. You see, in the stage of Nishtha, the Papa's gone. You're steady in your practices and you're not doing any sins. But in the Chitta, there's still some scars, impressions, they're called Pak Bij, the seed of sins. So by practicing bhajan, that is bhajana kriya, in the stage of nishtha, steadiness, those seeds of sins, those fine impressions, they're also removed. And then when they're removed, the chitta is clean enough to accommodate this madhurya, the sweetness of Krishna, the sweet qualities, and then his associates, that's ruchi, and then in asakti, your own form, and seva begins. And then that will lead to the stage of bhav.
And all that ruchi asakti, that is a reflection.
Yes, it's all about, because it's not Vishuddha Sattva. Vishuddha Sattva, Visheshatma, Prema Surya is not come yet. It's in the reflection. Okay, good question. Let me clear this a little bit. Vishwanath Thakur has given a nice example in this regard. He said, how can the material mind have a relationship with something transcendental? He said, if you put something inside something else, they have a relationship called adar and adeya. Adar means the receptacle, and the adeya is the thing which is contained in it. He said that bhakti is such that there is actually no relationship of adar and adeya between the mind and this transcendental experience. But by the Achincha Shakti of the Lord, still one experiences this Abbas. And the Bhakti Shakti rubs against the Chitta. It's called the Gushrana or Sammardan, rubbing. And he gives an example of Parat, that means mercury, and Gandak. Gandak means sulfur. If you take sulfur and mercury and mix them together, actually they don't mix. We have some chemistry students here? No? Okay. You get the mercury and sulfur and you try to rub them together. They actually don't mix. It just won't happen. But if you keep rubbing for a long time, then suddenly they mix and they change their nature and it becomes kajal. Turns into kajal. Black kajal, that's, you decorate your eyes. So he said, in the same way, the chitta and the bhakti shakti in the form of shravanam, kirtanam, smaranam. The bhakti shakti is rubbing on the chitta and it produces abhilas. Abhilas is desire, you know?
But why doesn't it mix? They're both material.
We're getting there. So they're rubbing and it produces abhilas. So ruchi, another definition of ruchi is abhilas, desire. What kind of abhilas? Bhagavat prapt abhilas, Bhagavat anukul abhilas, and sohard abhilas. That means the desire to attain Krishna, the desire to render favorable services to Krishna, and the desire to have, sohard abhilas means suridbhav, to have an intimate friendship, relationship with Krishna. So these are three types of abhilas, and that is the ruchi. In other words, when the realization of Krishna's form and qualities and associates is coming in the heart as an abhas, then your greed is developing. Greed is not an abstract thing. I'm really interested. I am a great enthusiast. I'm an enthusiast of Raganuga Bhakti. I've heard about it. I'm super enthusiastic. And that's low. That's not low. Please. That's not low. Low means that in that stage you are catching the abhas. And Gurudev gave the example like the dog outside the sweet shop. Right? There's a sweet shop, and there's a glass, and there's all sweets in there. There's a stray dog outside, you've seen in India, like hairless wonder. So there's this mangy dog, with no hair, and he's outside. No one will let this filthy dog in the shop, of course. And he's looking through the glass, he can smell the sweets, and he's salivating like anything. Why? Because he can see it. So Chaito Darpana Marjanam. First clean the mirror, see something, then we're like that mangy dog. Well, I am, not you. You are no great personality, but I'm like that mangy dog.
Why is it called reflection if he's actually seeing the sweet?
Because it's not direct. Chitta is like a glass. The analogy is not exact. Gurudev is giving this analogy. But there is the Mahaprabhu giving that analogy, Gurudev is giving this analogy. Just try to understand this, but it's not, he can access it. Yeah? So, he's seeing, I want. Sometimes a person will come out the sweet shop and he was eating a rasgulla in a leaf plate and he bit it. And it was dribbling down his chin and some drops fell off his chin into the leaf plate. And he came outside and he threw the leaf and the dog jumped on it and licked some, got some taste. That means a Mahabhagavad Vaishnava. He's tasting the rasa of Krishna Lila. All the juice is coming down. And he comes to you outside. And by his mercy you can taste a little bit what it's like to actually experience that sweet. You see? So by the cleansing of the heart and some internal experience, and by the mercy of a pure Vaishnava, our lobh, our greed is growing. And so these three types of abhilas come. But in the stage of ruchi, the abhilas are buddhi purvaka. Buddhi purvaka means that you have to intentionally seek out that sanskar in your heart. In other words, you're not feeling the abhilas at every moment, but when you take your japamala and then you begin to chant and you remember a verse, how Krishna is decorated with a peacock feather, and he is coming out of Nandagaon in the morning, playing his flute, surrounded by his covered voice, making beautiful footprints in the dust of Braj. So Padaramanam Pravisad Gita Kirti, Hare Krishna, Hare, like this. Some volition, intention is there, and when you do that, then the abhilas, there's some spurti, and the abhilas is coming. So that's called buddhi purvaka, preceded by the application of your own volition. But when you come to the stage of asakti, then it's called swarasiki. The abhilas is swarasiki, natural. You don't even think about it. You don't have to make an act of volition, apply yourself, you're so attached. No. And it's always that Bhagavat Prapt abhilas, Anukul Seva abhilas, so hard abhilas. So that means now the Shravanam Kirtanam Smara is rubbing more. And then what happens? Just like the gandak, the sulfur, and the para, the mercury, suddenly mix and become one. So what happens? The chitta on which it was reflected and rubbing suddenly melts and becomes one with that. Adilas. And that's the definition of bhav. Ruchi bis chittamasrinya kridaso bhavuchate. Shuddha sattva visheshatma prema suryam susamyavak. Ruchi bis chittamasrinya kridaso. It means that the chitta, masrinya, is melted by what? Ruchi bihi. These three types of ruchi. They appeared in the stage of ruchi, but they were not strong enough. It was just the samardan going on. And when it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, ruchi bis chitta masrinya, the heart chitta melts and becomes one with the swabhaviki, natural seva desires, and that is the stage of bhav. Shuddha sattva visheshatma. That is Shuddha nama. Is it clear now, Maharaj?
It's clear. But you brought up another point. Sorry, Maharaj. I've been meaning to ask him this for months. Because,
you take permission from Maharaj first.
Maharaj, please. Okay. So, on one hand, you said.
Kati Maharaj ki jai. I'm very happy to see you, my dear friend, after a long time. I am fortunate today.
He talks about you so fondly. Prem, Prayojan. So.
Yes, Maharaj.
On one hand, you say that we should have the mind enter into the mantra, and the mantra enter into the mind.
Yes.
And don't do any vikalpa of any other.
Harinam Nikalpanam. One of the 10 offenses, right? Harinam Nikalpanam. To superimpose a material conception onto the name. So all of our conceptions are material, actually, I mean, in the conditioned state.
Okay, but now you're saying that in the stage of ruchi, that the devotee may, with some volition, with the help of bheda-abheda-tattva,
yes.
So when one is doing that, then now it's not just the mantra entering into the mind and mind entering into the mantra, but you're utilizing something else.
Yes.
So can you
because
that?
Because in that stage, really, truthfully, Mantramaya Upasana is not actually really performed until the stage of asakti.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
No. I mean, Gurudev would talk about, I'll remember a verse and it's not my Gurudev. But one day I said, we were in Gopinath Bhavan and I was alone with him in his room. I said, Gurudev, what's the stage when you could actually do Mantramaya Upasana? He said, asakti. But no, what it is, now remember that hearing, chanting and remembering, all three of them, they go along the stage of, if the chitta is pure, you do Rup Kirtan, and the Rup Kirtan will produce a spurti, and that's Rup Smaran. So it is not like an ordinary person just speculating, but that person in that stage of Ruchi or Asakti, if you say, bheda-abheda-tattva, which is the best verse in Srimad Bhagavatam for Rup Dhyan, right? Gurudev says that 3 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam which are the best for Rupa Dhyana. One by Lord Brahma, Nam Vidyate Brahmapasai Tadidambaraya. One by the Dvijapatnis, Shamam Hiranya Paridin Panamalya Baha. And the best one is by the Gopis, Baha Pidam Natavarapapu Kaneokai. Okay? These are Rupa Dhyana. So he's not like thinking Astakali Lila. He's qualified. Rupa Shravanena Taddo Yogyata Bhavati. He's qualified for the awakening of the Rupa. So he's saying a verse which is relative to his qualification, which is bringing the appearance of Rup Smaran. And then Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Okay.
So it's appropriate for that stage. A Rupa Dhyana is quite appropriate for that stage.
So before that, when one is going through Anatha-Nivritti, then what's appropriate is to really just focus on now.
Okay, now I'm glad you brought this up, Maharaj. And the reason is this. The other day, our most dear, beloved Godbrother, Vishwarup-Prabhu, he brought up this point. He said, Gurudev used to tell us sometimes, oh, you should chant Harinam and then chant a verse like this and then chant again like this. Should we do that or should we just hear the name? So this morning, I told the pastime when someone asked Gurudev about this, and he turned to a new person and said, can you remember my father? And that new person said, I've never seen your father, how can I remember him? Gurudev then turned to the person, you see, exactly. So start with the name. So Gurudev has given two types of instructions. One, just here. And on another occasion, Srila Prabhupada used to give that instruction. That was the main instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave. He used to say, here, here, here. Become clear, clear, clear.
Constantly.
In fact, one time a devotee came to Srila Prabhupada and said, oh Prabhupada, when I'm chanting, then my mind is going here and there, and it's hard to control. What should I do? Prabhupada said, you chant with your tongue and you hear with your ear. What does your mind have to do with it? See, in such a powerful way, it's just saying, you just hear that vibration. That's all. So Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev, other great acharyas, you can see in the Upadeshavali of Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur as well, in the last one, is that just chant and hear the name. And after some time, if you're very persistent and very determined, after some time, Nama-Prabhu will reveal his beautiful Swarup. And if you go on chanting, gradually the rest of your anarthas will go, and all the lila and everything will be revealed. It's the last teaching in the Upadeshavali of Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So those instructions are there. But then on the other hand, there are times Gurudev has said, oh, you chant this verse, or like when you're chanting, you can do Parikrama Govardhan in your mind or something. So why is this? Just like I mentioned before, to really do that actual japa for the very conditioned soul with ignorance is almost unbearable. Right? It's very hard. So just to encourage the neophyte, then Gurudev would say, oh, you remember this pastime, remember that pastime. It's not actually Leela Smaran, actually. But it's better than
thinking of Miami Beach.
Exactly. Because if you don't have taste in the name and you're feeling aversion, then even though you might do your best to complete your rounds, but while you're chanting, you'll tend to think about your own pastimes. Right? And you'll make more Nama-Prabhu. So Gurudev used to say these words of encouragement for people, but due to not understanding Siddhanta, people are thinking, oh, I'm doing Lila Smarana. And that's why this morning we were discussing Vidvat Ruddhi, the actual meaning of the word Shravanam, the actual meaning of the word Kirtanam, and the actual meaning of the word Smaranam. Okay? So it's like a concession for the neophyte to help them just finish their rounds, do their rounds, maybe increase their rounds, have an interest, remember some of the impressions, whatever they have from parikrama and so on, like that. Then when they get to a certain stage of purity and understanding, then they actually do japa. Then they're just hearing, and then everything opens.
Concession.
Yeah, it's a concession. Now, but the best way for that concession to take place is in the context of archan. Let's say you have diksha, and now you're serving your deities, right? So you have to serve your deities. You offer 16 articles. This morning you said the verse. Iti murti abhidanina mantra murti mamurtikam. Narad Muni said to Vyasadeva, this mantra has a vigraha, a form. So in the commentary on that verse, Srila Vishwanath Thakur, he said that the Supreme Lord has agreed to manifest His beauty to that person who worships Him with 16 articles. So does Upachara. So that's what the Pujari does every day. They do the puja offering 16 articles. Idamasan Esha Pushpantali, Idamasanam Marmayami, Stavanami, Etatpadyam, Idam, etc. He does the 16 articles. So this is archan. So then, when you're doing this archan, then you have to pray. Tato Vrindavanam Jayat Paramananda Varanam Kalindi Jalakalula Sanimaruta Sedikam Nana Pushpa Latavata Vikshasandaista Manditam Koti Surya Samavasa Vimuktam Sattarangkai Sri Krishnam Sri Ganashamam Purnananda Kalivaram Dvibhujam Sarvadevesham Radhalingita Vigraham. There are mantras that you have to say while you're doing the art chant. So this means, now I meditate, I'm in Vrindavan. The river Jamuna is flowing. The trees are full of flowers and blossoming creepers. The whole Dham is more shining than a million suns. That place is untouched by the 6 whips of hunger, thirst, fatigue, old age, and so on. There's a beautiful golden throne, Radha Krishna sitting, and so on. So this is smaran, right? It's a kind of smaran. But it's actually not the anger of bhakti called smaran. Aha! Yes. So for the neophyte who actually cannot do smaran, his so-called smaran is actually a sublimb of the anger of bhakti called archan. You see? Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 64 angers of bhakti. Some of the angers are one activity, and some of the angers are a complex of activities. So for example, one anger of bhakti is, if the deity is going on procession, you should follow him. So that's just one thing. Then another anger of bhakti is archan. But in archan there are many things. Putting on tilak, offering bhoga, decorating, cleaning the temple. It's a whole complex of many things. So Jiva Goswami Pad said, very interesting. I think Bhakti Sandarbha Anuched 309. Yatha Kirtana Smarna Bhava Sevanam Mayam Upasanam Eva Agam Ukta Vidimayatva Vishishtapati Archanam Ityavidiyate Tato Naviviktatvat. The meaning is this, that if a person is engaged in chanting or remembering or serving the lotus feet, according to the vidhi, the direction, the instructions in the Agama Shastra, that means the Vaishnava Tantra, the Archan Dipika and all these things, the text on Archan, then that practice is actually Archan. That's actually Archan. So Gurudev said on a few occasions, he said, when I do Archan, it's Seva. But when you do Smaran, it's Archan. It's very deep.
Bhajan Rahasya.
And in the introduction to Bhajan, there's a difference between Bhajan and Archan, right? So I just quoted the line of Jiva Goswami where he said, even Smaran, which is done according, that you say someone is chanting and thinking, oh, now Krishna's doing this at this time and everything. It's not a spurti, it's not coming from a spurti. They read something in the scripture and they're remembering according to the direction of scripture. That is not actually the anger of bhakti called smaran, that is the anger of bhakti called archan. It's included in archan. So even though the neophyte can do smaran to a limited degree, it's better if he will do it within the context which is recommended for him, the path of archan. And that will, then his remembrance will be directed in a nice way, you know? Like in archan, when you wake up in the morning, as soon as you jump out of bed, what do you say? Jayati Jananivaso Devaki Janmavado Yarubara Parishatva Dorvyasya. And then what do you say? Vidashna Gopala Vilasinam Sambhogachinam Kita Sarvakatram. Oh, I remember Krishna. He's surrounded by very clever cunning gopis. And they've made marks all over his body. So that's Smaran of Krishna in the morning, right there from the beginning of your Archan practice. But that's Smaran, though it's rustic and beautiful, and though it's one pointed towards Vrindavan and your Sambandha Gyan, but it's actually Archan. In that stage, gradually when one becomes mature, and the one becomes free from two things, what? Kadaya Shil, impious activities, and Vikshipta Chitta, distracted consciousness, then you can just chant and hear, and the manifestations of Nam will come one by one. So Krishnadas Kaviraj in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita said, Bahu Janmi Yadi Kori Shravana Kirtan Tabutana Pai Krishna Pari. You can chant Hare Krishna for many lifetimes, but you will not attain Krishna Prem because of offenses. So Tabu Jani Tahite Aparada Prachur Krishna Nama Vija Tahi Nakare Ankur. If a person is chanting, then it's to be understood that that person has many offenses. If Nam Bij is not Ankur, sprouting. The name should sprout, the form, the qualities, the associates, the pastimes. And if that sprouting is not taking place, the only reason is Nama-Prabhu is there. So to overcome Nama-Prabhu, one takes shelter of Shri Guru, receives Diksha, is engaged in Archan under his guidance, becomes free from the oscillating mind and bad activities, has some samskars of a Sambandha Gyan, then he can chant Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Comes in Nishta, and then Ruchi, taste, and all the realizations unfold. So this is something of the relationship between Nam, Sravan, Kirtan, and actual Smaran, and how Archan is a preliminary activity, especially to facilitate the neophyte in attaining the actual experience of Bhakti, Shravan, Kirtan, and Smarana. Therefore it said, Archayam eva haraye pujaya sarayate natad bhakteshu chanyetsu sabhakta prakita smritaha. The neophyte devotee is somewhat materialistic. What does he do? Archa. He believes in the deity and in his guru. He doesn't know how to properly associate with other Vaishnavas properly. He hasn't developed that understanding of Vaishnava Tattva yet. But anyway, he has faith in the Archan, and that process, gradually he'll come to the Madhyam stage where he has love for the devotees, friendship with all the devotees. Prema Maitri Kripopeksha Sakaroti Samadhyamaha. Gaur Premanam.